Good morning, Truckee. My name is Raven Whittington. I'm with Porter Simon Law Firm, and I am your humble host this morning. And we have a very, very interesting program on homelessness and the unhoused. We're going to have a presentation by Kathy Foley and Jasmine Bro of the North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services and Nevada County Health and Human Services. And then we have Christina Kind from the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. We're going to start with our sponsors this morning. We have presenting sponsors is Tahoe Forest Healthcare System and Kelly Brothers Painting. Latte sponsors are the Town of Truckee, Auerbach Engineering, East River PR, and Porter Simon. Cappuccino sponsors are Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, JK Architecture and Engineering, Gold Ring Travel, and Boreal Woodward Tahoe. The espresso sponsors are Dixon Realty, Lift Truckee, Co-work Conference and Wellness Space, Mountain Hardware and Sports, NV5, Peak Digital Studio, Mount Lincoln Construction, High West Law, and Elements at Coldstream, along with our media partners, Tahoe Truckee Media, 101.5 FM, Truckee Tahoe Radio, and Sierra Sun Moonshine Inc. And for all of you that are drinking the coffee this morning, thank you to Mountain Brew for providing that. For the committee for putting this on, Jessica and the chamber staff, Ruth, Melissa, and Marissa, so thank you to them. And then the committee that decides what's going to be presented, which is Kelly Cutler, Mayumi Peacock, Ernie Grossman, Gerald Herrick, Tony Lashbrook, Jim Porter, Deb Ryan, Ted Owens, Jess Carr, and as always, Rory in the back there with Tahoe Truckee Media for handling the AV, and to the Town of Truckee and the council members for allowing us to use the space. Without further ado, what's most important is all of you. So who is here this morning? We'll start here. Go around and say your name.
Christina Kind, I'm with the Tahoe Community Foundation. Kathy Foley with the Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services.
Jasmine Bro, Health and Human Services.
Marcia
We can't hear over here.
Truckee Chamber of Commerce, Marcia Paytas.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Allison Schredner, Agnew Beck Consulting, and Foster County First Five Commission.
Laura Brown, Excellence in Education Foundation.
Kathleen Negan, Friends of Truckee Library Board.
Yay!
Ted Owens, Tahoe Forest Health System and Chamber Board.
April Cole, Friends of the Truckee Library Campaign Director.
Gerald Herrick, Truckee Fire Board.
Go in here, in the back. Yeah.
Okay, Shannon Decker, the Speed Foundation.
Right, we'll go here. Reese, you're up.
Friends of Truckee Library New Library Project.
Yay!
Truckee Community Cares.
Good morning, my name is Kathy Slocum, Just Imagine Marketing and Design. I published the Truckee Insider Guide.
Amber.
Oh, Doug Livingston. I'm with Four Seasons Construction.
I'm Amber Burke. I do communications for the school district, and I also sit on the chamber board.
Leslie Douglas, Soroptimist International Truckee Donor.
Nancy Wallace, also Soroptimist, and on the board of the Truckee River Watershed Council.
Zach Hughes, resident.
Nicole Crider, resident.
Bob Perwerda, resident.
Right.
Jennifer Gallagher, JK Architecture Engineering.
I'm Susan Jacobazzi, a communication consultant in the workplace.
Erin O'Donnell, North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services.
Laurel Homer, resident, and Sierra Bible Church.
Sunny Day, yes, my real name. Citizen and former activist on this issue in some other areas.
Mike LaFrancois,
Katie Schaefer, East River PR, Chamber.
Great, let's jump to Amy's table.
Kelly Cutler, Truckee Cultural District, Truckee Chamber.
Hi, Amy Schaller, the Old Lumberyard and Truckee Chamber Boards. And like Ron Nielsen, Dixon Realty, and the Optimist Club of Truckee.
I'm Laura Mello with LJM Design Group, and nobody else.
I'm Monica Kinney, Town of Truckee.
And I'm Nicole Upper, and I'm with Allie Marie Marketing Agency. Hi everyone, I'm Allie Blinds, and I'm with Allie Marie Marketing Agency.
Allison Frank, Palisades Tahoe, Social Responsibility and Philanthropy.
And I'm Lindsay Romack, Council Member, Town of Truckee.
Yeah, and a good one.
Jim Porter, recently retired from this guy's place. And did you describe yourself as humble?
Yeah. Nothing compared to you. You know, I take humble pie from you, right?
That's true.
Yeah. How long have you been recently retired? What's the definition of recently now these days?
Within a year.
Yeah.
Hi, Cindy Basso, Basso Law Community Organizer.
Bill Greeno, Truckee Chamber Board Chairman.
Michelle Prestowitz, Truckee River Watershed.
Did I forget anybody, which I am apt to do?
Me, but I think everyone knows.
Yeah, sorry, Jessica.
Jessica, presidency of the chamber.
Marissa?
And Melissa, I just want to say it's Ruth's birthday today.
Oh, I was going to get there.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I can, you already went around? Oh,
We
Michelle
did.
Erskine with our Truckee and also TDMA.
Okay, thank you. And now we are going to begin with, I believe both of you are coming up, and if I'm wrong with that, we're going to start with Katie Foley, who's the Program Director with North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services, and Jasmine Bro of the Nevada County Health and Human Services Department. So welcome them up.
Christina's first. I'm actually going
Oh, that's not what's on my calendar. Okay, throwing it up. Christina Kind of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation.
Good morning and thank you. I'm Christina Kind. I'm a program director with the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. I'm joined by my colleagues Jasmine and Kathy, as was just introduced. We are going to be speaking to you today around the issue of homelessness. As soon as these slides load, I will start. Because the very first slide is an interactive slide where I'm going to ask you a question. And thank you to Marissa and Jessica for having us here today. So as I said, I'm going to ask you a question. Are you aware that homelessness is an issue in the region? And if you feel comfortable, you can raise your hand when I read the responses. Very aware. I see most of the hands up. Somewhat aware? Not aware at all. And there's no wrong answer. That's why we're here today. We'll see if your answer changes after our presentation. We asked these questions through the Mountain Housing Council, which is a program of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, and is a council of 29 different partners working to advance solutions in housing here in the region with a partnership with the Sierra Sun. So the survey launched in December, and these are the responses from 184 community members. So in our community, 61% are very aware of homelessness in the region, 34% are somewhat aware, and 5% are not aware at all. I say that corresponds pretty well with what we just saw in the room. We also asked, what are your general opinions or feelings about the topic of homelessness? And I'll let you read these to yourself. You don't have to raise your hand, but just think about where you would fall in this series of questions. And can everyone read them? Okay. Now I'm going to share with you the responses from our community members. So nobody said that they don't really understand the issue. 10% of our community said, I feel unsafe when I see homeless people in our area. 29% said, I feel like we should do more to find housing and support for unhoused people. 10% said, I feel compassion for people in need. 17% said, I understand the complexities of the issue. 21% said, I feel like this is a national issue due to housing prices, and we are seeing it here. 11% said, I feel like we should all be doing more to solve the issue. And so now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Kathy Foley, and she will talk about, do we have a homeless issue in the Tahoe Truckee region?
Good morning, everybody. I've lived here in Truckee for over 30 years and know many of you from different hats I've worn. The last 15 years have been mostly advocating for underserved neighbors, and the last chunk of years have been with North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services, and thank you for having us here today. The very first question is, do we have a homeless issue in the North Tahoe Truckee region? And the answer is yes, and we come to that decision by looking at the point in time count numbers, which is a snapshot that happens in the middle of January, and all communities where individuals are counted on where they slept a certain night. Our homeless count for this coming week, next week we have our homeless count for this year. So last year we counted 88 individuals. We also realized that because we have increased people engaging in services, and that's been happening since COVID started. The numbers have really been climbing, and when we're accessing people to services, we're using Homeless Management Information System, which is referred to as HMIS, to get to know people, to track as they come into the system, how we can help them move through the system, and then move back out. And so those numbers correlate pretty close with the point in time count for the reason that we have people that entered the system and then they exit out of the system. And the majority of these people that we're serving on a regular basis are our neighbors. They're people that have been in this region for a long time. The second question is, who are our unhoused neighbors? And the answer is that these neighbors are somebody's mother, brother, sister, child, and the majority of them, again, have been in this region and consider this region home. We have neighbors that are chronically homeless, meaning that they've been unhoused for a year or longer and have a disabling condition. That year can be in a row or it can be in instances over a couple-year period of time. And we have neighbors that are newly homeless, which often we refer to also as invisible homeless. So those are folks, often it's a family that'll sleep on someone's couch for a few months. It's our workforce that's living in their cars, and some of those folks are veterans who've served in the military, and again, back to the fact that some of them are our workforce. And then the third question being, how do we currently serve our unhoused neighbors? And this slide shows the different programs that we have. The majority of these programs have grown since COVID began. We are doing the best with a very small team. We have right now 4 full-time individuals, including myself, and 2 part-time individuals, and that's considered a full team, but the last year we've struggled with staff like everyone else in this region has. And these programs came because we had an influx of COVID funding that allowed us to really build a continuum of services in this region for the very first time and meet people's needs and help people into housing. On the next few slides, I'll go through the different programs and just share a little bit about each of them. So the first program is the Warming Center, and in 2015, a grassroots community effort with United for Action came together. United for Action is a coalition of faith-based organizations and nonprofits, and they made the commitment that they were going to find a way to provide some type of emergency warming center in this region. In 2015, December 24th, we opened the warming center for the first night. Each year, that program has become more vital. People realize that in an alpine environment like this, it's deadly when you don't have any options, especially if you don't already live here and have all of your survival skills intact, which is most of us. I wouldn't want to do it. And we continually grew over the years. So the first 3 years was 100% volunteer effort. Then we grew into a space where we hired a program coordinator that worked through the winter. And then again, when COVID hit in March, instead of closing the warming center, we stepped up to expand and share the emergency day center. This program has shifted spaces. We've gone from the lower level at Church of the Mountains. During COVID, we were fortunate to use the Veterans Memorial Building, and then we came back to Church of the Mountains. And then unfortunately, in October, we had to make a really challenging decision, which was that our team wasn't going to be able to run the warming center for this 9th season. And gratefully, we presented that to Placer and Nevada County, Jasmine Bro, and the hospital, and town of Truckee, and Jasmine and Nevada County have really stepped up, and they've made an emergency warming center come together as of the end of December, and they will be open through at least March. That location is on the 2nd floor of the Joseph Center and is open every week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and other weather-triggered nights. And with this emergency, our big focus is, one thing that happened when all these agencies came together is that it was clear that it's a vital service and it needs to continue. So discussions will continue on how to find a permanent solution for this. The next program would be homeless outreach, and in 2016, Placer and Nevada County came together with Mental Health Services Act funding and hired a part-time homeless outreach coordinator, which was someone who would go out in the community and support our unhoused neighbors when the warming center wasn't open, do a little bit of case management, and see that through. In 2018, that position became full-time, and then last year, a year and a half ago, when that position became part of North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services, we partnered that individual with another staff member. So we go out in a team of 2, and we're going out to meet neighbors where they're at. We're getting to build relationships. We're encouraging people to engage in services. We're replying to phone calls from agencies that may have an unhoused neighbor that needs some support, or community members. And in this last year, we served 50 individuals and provided 83 referrals for those folks to either mental health care, physical health care, Sierra Community House, Hospitality House, full-time shelter in Grass Valley, and many more. Our next program is started as the Emergency Day Respite Center. In 2012, there was a group effort with a group of churches that pulled together and opened the Food Resource Support Center. It was a small program in the annex of the Catholic Church on E Street. That program opened Tuesdays and Wednesdays and served as the very first place that people could come in and have lunch and engage in case management and take a shower, get some clothing, and welcomed in a place for people to be. In 2020, that program faded away with COVID, and the Emergency Warming Center staff came together, and we continued opening that the Food Resource Support Center, and then opened a center up in the Veterans Memorial Building. It gives people a place that they can come, they can be there, they can charge their phone, they can get a meal, they can be part of a community. It's low barrier, which means people can come as they are, as long as they can follow a basic set of rules. Really, it's let's all get along. And last year we had 277 individual guests and 43 pets, most of those were dogs, and provided 3,165 visits. The center, we're excited to say that we expanded our hours. We're now open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 1 until 5 each day. But when I say expanded the hours, that's still only 16 hours a week that people have a place to be. So it's a celebration, but it's also a realization that there's still a hole in that for our neighbors that don't have a place to be. Case management came into play about 2.5 years ago. The Emergency Warming Center program was absorbed by AMI Housing. AMI Housing stands for Advocates for the Mentally Ill Housing. They're a nonprofit that focuses on supportive housing down in the Auburn Grass Valley area. And they absorbed the Warming Center program and created North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services. And that's what enabled us to access the funding to also add case management. Because without case management and the opportunity to get to know people, to help them fill out applications, for us, it's a pain to get a new ID. For somebody without an address or a place to keep that ID once they get it, it becomes a whole nother level. Case manager's goal is to, after someone's been engaging with us for a couple of weeks, if we have staff available, a case manager will step in and help individuals work forward with whatever their goals are. Not our goals, their goals. Sometimes it's documentation, sometimes it's getting back on their Medi-Cal, sometimes they had Social Security benefits that have now been stopped because they moved, which happens when you don't have a secure address. And the big piece is when people are ready, develop housing plans. And sometimes those plans are for things that are here in this area, and sometimes those plans are shelter outside of this area. And case management has been the key to ending homelessness. Well, homelessness ends by having housing. That's the number one piece that ends homelessness. But having the ability to case manage, and we helped complete 136 housing applications and navigate the system this last year. And out of that, we housed 18 households and ended their homelessness. Some of those housing placements were in this area. The majority of them were, but 3 of them, I believe, were outside of this area. 6 of those 18 neighbors were chronically homeless, meaning they'd been outside for more than a year. Most of them had been outside significantly longer. 12 were newly homeless, meaning that their rent got raised, meaning that they had a situation where the housing that they came to be in from their job didn't work out. And 6 of these households have lived in this region longer than 10 years. And really, it's more than that. And, you know, I have so many stories, and the success stories are what we hold on to as we continue to push forward and try to have an inclusive community where people also feel like they belong. And one story would be, is there's a gentleman, we'll call him Joe, and he moved out here when he was in his late 20s to work in the ski industry. Then he got into the restaurant industry, met up with somebody, ended up in the building trade. In his mid-30s, he found a partner, he built a home, and for 10 years, he was living a very successful life that we would all call living the dream here in Tahoe. And then he got hurt at work, and his relationship fell apart when his partner passed away. And he lost his home 3 years later. And he spent 15 years out on the streets between Truckee, Tahoe City, and Kings Beach. And he was going to be homeless in Truckee because this is his home. He didn't care. It's cold, weather's not a problem. He's going to do that. Over the last 5 years, we've had a few different case managers that have stepped in and gotten to know him and built a relationship. After a year of working with him last winter, he said to his case manager, "I'm tired of this stuff. I need to be inside. I'm too old for this." He's now in his early 70s. And we were able, because of the housing that had come available, to help him into one of the income-restricted properties. And for the first 2 months, we put him up in a hotel. We had private funding to help him with emergency supportive housing in order to get him ready for the idea that he'd be in his own home, have him on hand so that we could sign the paperwork, find the documents that we needed. And after about 2.5 months, we celebrated as we moved him into his home. And he still engages with his case manager, and he is so grateful to have a studio apartment where he can pay 30% of his income and live the rest of his years here and not die outside. So housing ends homelessness. This is sort of a void in our system. Moving on. So housing ends homelessness, but there's also pieces that are required in order to get to that space, which would be emergency shelter or transitional housing, which is what we were able to provide this gentleman. We were able to provide him a stable place while we put the other pieces together. Because it's really hard to move your life forward when you don't have a place to shower, when you don't have a consistent place to keep your things, when your stuff gets stolen, when it gets lost. And so emergency shelter is available through private funding. It was available much more frequently during COVID. And the next piece is transitional housing, which is another short-term shelter model. And the program that's stable here in our community is through Sierra Community House and through their Safe House. That is the only transitional housing program in this area right now, and they're focused on supporting those that are fleeing domestic violence and sexual assault. And so this is a hole that we have in our community that sometimes can be met with funding by using hotel rooms, and other times it's on the list of things we need to do. And so that's where we are today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jasmine Bro with Health and Human Services, who's the hero of the Warming Center project this year, and going to share with you what we're doing moving forward.
Good move. Okay, so what housing options do we have available in our community today?
So we have a continuum available in our community today. So it starts with affordable housing. So that would be your subsidized units like the Artist Lofts or Meadowview Place. And those are units that anyone that qualifies for income can apply, go through the lease-up process, and get housing. They could be supported with a case manager, or they could do it individually on their own, kind of whatever path they're on. And then we have permanent supportive housing. And so we have 18 units of those in our region. So that is Brown Bear Studios. And then we have some units at Coldstream Commons that are considered supportive housing. And so supportive housing is a very unique intervention specifically targeted for people that are experiencing chronic homelessness. We would not offer someone who is short-term homeless because their landlord sold their property and they have a job and they're living in the community. We would not offer them a permanent supportive housing unit because the idea is that they could likely resolve their homelessness on their own or with a little bit of funding. And so the permanent supportive housing is meant to be long-term case management to support someone wherever they're at using a housing first model, which would be we meet someone where they're at, we get them indoors, and then we start working on what their goals are. It's regardless of kind of where anyone is at with their sobriety. It's more about helping someone follow the lease, which people are expected to do, and that does create challenges. Guests are usually one of the most challenging things to help someone navigate through when they're moving off from the streets. And then the last option that we have in our community is the housing supports. So those are housing subsidies that could come through a housing choice voucher, which would be through the Regional Housing Authority, or rapid rehousing. And so rapid rehousing is a short-term pot of money that will help someone pay security deposit, last month's rent, and then it may offer a short-term subsidy for the first year to help someone get on their feet. And then it can also come with some light case management. But the idea is that you're kind of moving someone through the services, and then you're stepping back because they no longer need those supports. So is this housing enough? I think we can all say no. So Mountain Housing Council did a housing survey in 2023, and their findings were that there was a total of 8,000 unmet housing needs, and so we need a substantial amount of more units to meet the housing needs in our community. So we've talked about this thread a lot at this point, but housing is the cause of homelessness. So this is a quote from the UCSF Benioff study of homelessness, and this study highlights that if we had more housing, we would have less homelessness. And so this study just came out. This is going to be one of your calls to action at the end of this presentation is to read more about this study. But it was conducted by the University of San Francisco, the Benioff Homeless and Housing Initiative, and it's the most complex, comprehensive study on homelessness since the 1990s. And it looks at multiple regions in California, rural, urban. There was some local studies perhaps in this region, but we're not able to disclose that. But there was lots of focus groups, and it focused on adults 18 and over. And then the end of the study is that it recommends some key policy reforms that could really make a dent in homelessness. So some basic stats. We talked earlier about the neighbors that are in this community have lived in this community for a long time. And so this study highlights that 9 out of 10 people that were surveyed lived in the community where they first lost their housing. And the idea behind this is that this is someone's home. They're familiar with their resources. They have support systems, whatever that may look like. And if you become homeless, the idea of going to a new area where you have none of that is not very appealing or likely. The median income for participants was $960, and they also found that our homeless population is aging. And so the idea of people increasing their income to meet the rising cost of housing is very unrealistic. Finally, homelessness is solvable. There's a lot of key findings and recommendations. They had some interesting questions about, hypothetically, if you were offered a lump sum of money or a monthly subsidy, how likely would that be to have prevented your homelessness? And a lot of people answered, yes, something like that would have likely prevented me from entering homelessness. And so there's a lot of conversations at legislative levels about how do we implement something like that to give people more of a chance of not becoming homeless in the first place. We're doing a lot of work in our region to end homelessness. One of the things that we have launched is the Tahoe Truckee Homeless Advisory Committee that launched this year. And we have been having work groups in this community on homelessness for many, many years. But what we found is that not all the jurisdictions were at the table. And so that's what this advisory committee is about, is having all of the key jurisdictions, the town, the hospital, both counties, all of our nonprofit partners, faith-based communities at the table so that we can have a comprehensive conversation about what we need to do to move this work forward. And we have all the key decision makers at the table. And so it's funded by the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation for 1 year, and it sits under the Homeless Resource Council of the Sierras, which is the governing body over our local continuum of cares. And so those are where we access technical assistance and federal and state funding for programs to end homelessness. And so it creates a linkage between the larger county initiatives so that we are keeping up with the work that they're doing and they're aware of what's going on up here. And so our chairs, we have Hardy Bullock from Nevada County, Cindy Gustafson from Placer County, and Jan Zabriskie from the town of Truckee. So our goal, like I mentioned, is to agree on a common goal and a shared vision, and then work towards an action plan and then track our progress. And then our final component of this is to make sure that we have good data. We can't solve a problem until we know what we're solving for. So Kathy mentioned the Homeless Management Information System, which is how we track individuals and then identify what subpopulation they fit in. So it could be a veterans, families, or chronically unhomeless. And then based off of that data, we define what the strategies are. So is it more permanent supportive housing? Is it more rapid rehousing? And then we figure out where we find the dollars and how do we move forward. Okay, and I will turn it over to Christina.
So how does this work fit into the full housing picture? So I mentioned before that I'm a part of Mountain Housing Council, so this bridge may look familiar to you if you've ever seen it in any of Mountain Housing Council's presentation. We call this the Achievable Local Housing Bridge, and what it basically means is that we are focused on finding solutions for everyone, from no income, people who have no income, all the way to people who have lots of income, up to 245% of our area median income. And so this bridge kind of shows you it in the different buckets. Today we've been really focused on that orange part of the bridge for people who have low income, which in our area is for a household of 4, and that doesn't have to mean 2 adults and 2 children. It can be any composition of household of 4, is earning $83,350 a year. And that translates to about $7,800. Excuse me, that's not exactly right. For our region, it's more like $92,000 per year, and that translates more to like $7,800 per month, which is much higher than what you saw Jasmine present earlier in the slides at only $960 a month. And so what I'm trying to show you is that, yes, we know that we have an issue here in our region, and we have lots of people working on it, but we also know it fits into a larger picture, and that housing is a part of that equation. We also know that there are subsidies available to create housing at that 80% and lower, and that there aren't as many subsidies once you get higher in area median income. And so we need to have lots of different housing in our region in order to fit everyone in our region, because we know that people earn different income, but that they also move in different places at different times in their life. And so when we talk about people who earn 80% area median income and lower, we know that we need subsidized housing, which means housing projects like the Truckee Artist Lofts, Coldstream Commons, Meadowview Place. We also know we need some of that transitional housing, which is what Sierra Community House provides, and Kathy and her team provide some of it in the way of hotel vouchers. But we also know that we need a shelter. And then when we know we have people who are earning more than 80% area median income, we need to have affordable rentals, affordable housing, and when we get much higher, then we know that people can afford the market rate housing. So we also know that, again, people move in every direction on this continuum. So if a family is able to connect with services, if they're able to improve their employment, if they're able to increase their income, establish savings, and get more stability, then we know that people can go from unhoused all the way up to buying a home. Oops, sorry. We also know it goes the other way. People can own a home. That's the story of Joe that Kathy told earlier. They can lose a partner. They can become very severely ill or lose a job, or they may just need to downsize because of where they are in their life. And so they can move into affordable housing or subsidized housing, or may even become unhoused. And so it's important to keep in mind that all of us can move along that continuum of housing. I wanted to give you a real-time snapshot. Again, back to that Sierra Sun survey that we just did in December. We asked people, have you or someone you know experienced homelessness? 3.2% said that they are at risk of experiencing homelessness. 4.8% said that they're personally experiencing it or have in the past. And 39.7% of us know someone who is experiencing homelessness or has in the past. Another real-time snapshot. This is from the Mountain Housing Council's 2023 Housing Needs Update Survey. 90% of our respondents, and that survey reached about 1,200 community members through an online survey. 90% of respondents who are renters had trouble finding housing. We had about 170 responses that were in Spanish, and of those, 85% said that they had trouble finding housing. 17% of respondents currently or are at risk of falling behind on rent or mortgage payments, and 35% of respondents report trouble finding housing for year-round occupancy, and that's 21% for our Spanish-speaking survey respondents. So in the larger picture, Jasmine shared with you that we have an unmet housing need in our region of about 8,197. And what unmet housing needs is that you are facing one of these housing problems. So one, you're either in overburdened housing conditions, where you're spending more than 30% of your income on housing. You're either in an overcrowded condition where there's more than one person per room, or you're in underhoused housing, which you lack plumbing or a kitchen or all the basic necessities that you need. And so we divide this out into different cohorts. Our resident cohorts are the people that live here in our region. And we found that we have about a need of 4,180 units. And that's not just units, sorry. It doesn't mean we have to build new units. It just means that those people need either lower rent, lower mortgages, or housing that's bigger, or housing that has plumbing. We also know that our in-commuters, we have a need of about 2,485 units. For our seasonal workers, we have about a need of 1,444. And as we said earlier, our point-in-time count for 2023 was 88. So we broke this need out, again, by area median income. The darker shaded area is the amount of housing that's adequate right now in our region for those different area median income brackets. So if you look at the orange, again, those are for people who are earning 80% or lower. We know that there's a substantial need for housing that fits one of those housing needs. And so if you look at the far left, those are for people who are earning up to 30%, so they're very, very low income. The middle bracket is 30% and 60%, and the one on third to the left is between 60% and 80%. So when you total that need, I believe it was like almost 5,000. And so the reason I bring that up is because we need to focus on everyone in our community, from those who have no income all the way up to 245. And we know we need housing solutions, like housing. So we have housing in the works. Pacific Crest Commons is a project that will be at the old highway, California Highway Patrol site. That will bring our region some more affordable housing, but also permanent housing that Jasmine was talking about is so important because it connects people to services. We also know Brown Bear Studios is being rehabbed right now. 6 units are completed, and we know hopefully by July there should be 7 more units completed. That again is permanent supportive housing. On the horizon is senior housing, which we know is often an overlooked demographic in our region. Estates Meadows will bring affordable housing to seniors. Dollar Creek Crossing isn't here in Truckee, but in Placer County. That will be a mix of, or it's expected to be a mix of rentals and home ownership in all income brackets. Pacific Crest Commons, we already mentioned earlier. And then I just really want to call attention to all the assistance programs that are in our area that are really crucial to preventing homelessness. North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services under Kathy and AMI Housing has been doing a terrific job of putting together interventions to keep people in housing. Sierra Community House provides rental and utility assistance, which we know is crucial to keeping people into their housing, among many other services. Our Sierra Seniors does the Meals on Wheels programs, Nevada County Health and Human Services, in Placer County, but I'm just calling out Nevada County because we're here in Truckee. And the town of Truckee has an amazing housing program with a housing program analyst who's also helping to keep people in their homes. A newer agency that the hospital was helped to fund, Truckee Tahoe Workforce Housing Agency, has expanded their mission to serve the entire workforce. So they are not just focused on their member agencies anymore, they are focused on the whole community, and they can connect people to rentals. They have home buyer navigation programs, and a slew of other services. So I just want to point out all the groups that are doing good work in our community. Earlier we said get educated, find out what they're doing, get involved, and a few other ways for you to get involved. You can read the California statewide study of people experiencing homelessness that Jasmine mentioned earlier. I think the presentation is maybe emailed out, but here's a link to it. You can get involved. Contact Kathy Foley at North Tahoe Truckee Homeless Services. Her email is listed here, cfoley@amihousing.org. Or you can donate to the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation's Housing Solution Fund, and the link is here. One more call to action for you is, we mentioned it earlier, the point in time count is coming up. It counts where people slept on the night of January 23rd. It's very important to have an accurate count because it funnels resources to our community. And we know in the past that we haven't done a good job of counting people who are living in their cars or their vans. And so this year we really want to try to make a concentrated effort to reach those people. So if you're aware of any of your workers who may be living in a vehicle, please ask them to call this number or to reach out to Kathy's team through her website, and just let us know, and we'll follow up with them with all the information that they need. We also have trained outreach workers to reach all our other members in the community, as it is a count of people who are staying in sheltered services. So they may be spending the night at the emergency warming center, or they might be in transitional housing. And so we have a plan to reach them, but this is really an effort to reach those living in their vehicles. And back to our initial question that we opened up with today. Curious, and you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, if anyone's answer changed over the course of this presentation. Oh, I see some heads nodding, and it's okay if your answer did not change. And now we're going to open it up to questions, and Jasmine and Kathy will come up and we can answer any question that you might have.
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes for questions, so fire away, people. Not all.
Oh, okay.
A question.
Sure.
So I have had several friends who've come up from the Bay Area on the train. And when the train horseshoes back into Coldstream, they say in the summer there's quite an encampment out there. Are those people coming into town and asking for services, and are they counted in this demographics?
So many folks do access the services with the day center and move forward. In the summer, our numbers definitely are higher. We have travelers, you'd say, that come into this area. So some of them do, as well as our outreach team reaches out to those individuals. And so we do have a connection in those situations. It's also, there's times where people will see that and they'll call and just tell the outreach worker, this is what I've heard. And that way, if it's something we haven't seen, that they're able to swing by. Because our goal is to get to know everybody by name that's here in our region, short term and long term.
Okay. Thanks.
Sorry, can you talk a little bit about the need for a permanent transitional housing place? I mean, you mentioned the emergency warming shelter keeps shifting and the day centers shift.
So, these programs started for right now, the day center's running out of a small building to the right of Church of the Mountains, and we're on a month-to-month lease. Previously, we had space where we were able to use the lower level of the church and that building. Previous to that, we were at the Veterans Memorial Building. And so, without having a permanent location for people to access more than 16 hours a week consistently, there's just a lot of gaps. People are trying to find public places that they can be when we're not open. And it's hard to build a staff and a program when you don't know where you're going to be the next year. Are you going to have a location? So one of the pieces that is being addressed through the Truckee Tahoe Homeless Advisory Committee is what are right size solutions for this region. There's a list of properties that we've been talking through what could be done there. And so that is definitely on the list to move forward with. Where's a good location to be? What size services do we need? And how we can hopefully continue to move forward versus have to stop programming before we get there. So very important.
So, is there a seasonal shift in the number of homeless here? I realize there's a perception that there's an increase in the summer, but do we really know?
So there definitely is an increase in the summer. Those folks are not usually staying here very long. They're more referred to. There are people who are chronically homeless that are here every single summer. I've seen them for the last 15 years, and then they go someplace else in the winter. But it's just a much more pleasant place to be in the summer. And so our numbers definitely do go up. We see in the winter, we probably see 15 to 20 people a day at the day center. And in the summer, we probably see between 20 and 30 people a day. Because they're not here to ski and do that fun stuff we do in the winter. Yeah. Jessica.
So Jasmine, you mentioned policy shifts. Thoughts on Prop 1? Do you want to talk a little bit about Prop 1? It's being talked a lot about right now in my circle of the world and what that would look like, but just curious if.
Is Prop 1 the Mental Health Services Act reform? I know that it is very controversial in county advocate land. It's challenging because those funds are needed. So, and I'm not so well versed on it, but for Prop 1, so Mental Health Services Act dollars were the millionaires fund that was taxed to then support mental health services. And so those have been used for a lot of prevention programs. So Sierra Community House and other partner agencies receive a lot of funding from those services. And the Prop 1, the modernization of the MHSA dollars will essentially not create new funding, but it will reallocate funding to end homelessness. And in the debate about it, it's then, well, then how are you, so then you're taking efforts away from preventing homelessness, and what will that look like? There is a lot of other reforms that are happening through Medi-Cal and policy initiatives around the care courts, which is a kind of mandated court system to help kind of mandate treatment in a different way and offer housing. And so there are other solutions that are also coming online that my hope is will kind of take some of the pressure off these funds, but it will definitely have big impacts across the systems that we work in.
This may seem a little bit off, but many unhoused folks have a dog. In fact, I'd say the majority of them. How, that could be a traumatic situation or maybe even a barrier to housing. How do you all address that situation, say with a warming shelter or with supportive housing and what have you?
So the emergency warming shelter has always been a low barrier shelter, so people can come with their dogs. It is definitely a challenge when you look at transitional housing models. I don't know what Sierra Community House's policy is on that, but when looking at housing solutions, most of the individuals that we work with have a disability, and you can ask for a reasonable accommodation. So that would be a medical letter documenting that the animal is needed for treatment. And so that's one of the main ways that we accommodate people in moving into housing with their animals.
How would you recommend faith-based organizations and other organizations represented here in this room plug into supporting your efforts? What would be your recommendations?
So there's a lot of different opportunities that come up, from advocating when it's time to advocate for solutions. It's the daily work that's needing to be done. It's we need more boots. One way, on the back table, there's a yellow legal pad where you can put your name and an email address or a phone number, whichever you prefer. And then there's just a little note next to it that says, would you like the newsletter? Would you like to advocate? Would you like to get the emails when the warming center's open? And you can choose one of those, or you can write a note. But if you connect with me, I will try to connect you with the area you are most interested in serving in.
I've heard swirling around town that quite a few of the folks in the artist lofts are not actually from our region. I don't know if that's true. Can you let me know or comment on that, just because I know it's a common thing around town? It feels counterintuitive to everything that you've just talked about with all of our needs.
Yes. So we have a housing issue across the country. We have a housing issue across our state. When you have a property like the Artist Lofts that is tax credits buildings and also has project-based vouchers, so it comes from the Regional Housing Authority where you can pay 30% of your income. So there's a set number of units in each of those categories. And fair housing laws dictate that you cannot discriminate against someone based off of their address or any other disabling condition. And so the Artist Lofts has a preference point system to rank people that are, if you have a disability in Nevada County, if you live or work in Truckee, if you're an artist, all of those various questions will rank you a certain priority, and then you will be selected from the list. One of the challenges with tax credit units is that they have quotas that they need to meet in their lease-up rates. And so when you're going through your list and you are calling people that rank high on the priority and they don't call you back or they don't complete an application within the time frame, you have to move on to the next person. And anecdotally, our community has submitted a lot of applications at a higher rate than other properties down in more urban areas. And so this has been a new experience for a lot of us, and there are requirements that you have to follow. You have to submit your bank statements, your income, you have to do it. It requires a high level of office organization, and our community has had trouble meeting those needs. And so people have been offered housing that qualify for the housing, and where they originally are from is all over the state. I would say that that's all I'm going to say for now.
Let me just say one more little piece to that. Before that housing was available, and even currently, we have neighbors that have been in the Tahoe area a really long time that have been on lists to get into a regional housing authority program in other areas. So it's a commodity that's being filled. And so there may be a few that have moved this direction, and we're continually moving people to other areas of California because they need housing.
Jim.
But isn't the biggest issue in that we're talking about, the artist loft housing, that our locals that are making $20 an hour make too much money to qualify for the program, ironically. So the owners of the properties have to look elsewhere or go on further down their list to find somebody that may not live in our area that are filling these Is anything, progress being made to change that or address that?
It's a challenge across all of our programs. You know, if you don't meet the income thresholds in this community, you're considered not low income by the federal government, but the reality is that you're low income if you live here, and we see that same challenge with some of our county-based income programs like Medi-Cal and CalFresh and the family assistance as well, is that a lot of people don't qualify because they make too much money, but yet they don't have housing in this area.
I mean that's what I was trying to show in that achievable housing, local housing bridge, is that we know there's a need above that. And there is legislation right now. Oh, sorry.
No, that's.
There is legislation right now. It's called SB 440 that is tied up in the assembly, but it should be in the next legislative session. That would allow us to create regional housing finance authorities, and with that guidance and governance, we would be able to set our own sub-region AMI that could go up to 150. So you're right, most of the projects are actually 60% and lower, but this would allow us to maybe have some subsidized funding for people who earn over 80% of area median income, up to 120 and possibly 150. So there's definitely advocacy that needs to be done within our region and within the state.
And I would also add that while there are lots of different public perceptions about some of these properties, the other thing to highlight is that now we have that is in our continuum of care, and people that do qualify for that, like the people that we're serving through homeless services, they do have a chance to stay in this community now, whereas before there was not a chance. And so that, I believe, will even out, and I want to highlight that because people have been living in this community for years and now they have a chance to stay.
And the income limits also work really well for families. For example, I was a single mom with 3 kids, and that wasn't there at the time, but I would have fallen into that group. So it does work in that particular situation. And it also has worked really well for our seniors that are living on $1,200 a month for Social Security. And so there are people that are able to stay in this region in the affordable housing units that have been developed.
Yes.
When I think of homelessness, I think of mental health and you know, people with mental health issues, not necessarily always the folks that just have life issues where, you know, they lose a partner or whatever. What does that look like locally, like the mental health struggle? And how that affects the homelessness on a local level?
So I will talk about the statewide study because again, housing and the cost of housing is usually the predictor of homelessness, and someone who has vulnerabilities like mental health, like substance use, like domestic violence, someone who is a person of color, someone who experiences discrimination because they're part of a marginalized group, those people have higher chances of becoming homeless. And then there is a triggering event likely related to one of those vulnerabilities, then they become homeless, and those vulnerabilities add to the complexities of ending their homelessness and add to the length of homelessness. So we do have people that have mental health challenges. We have mental health challenges across our community, whether they're housed and unhoused. And a lot of us are one paycheck away from becoming homeless, and then that mental health or that substance use will add to the complexities of how we get out of it.
Okay, I have a closing question. Well, you all can ask questions later after the presentation, but I was astonished to see on, I think, number 4 when they asked, do you have compassion for the unhoused? And that was 10% or something. So I was wondering, was there an opt-out of not answering the question, or is that a true 10%?
It was a single response question. Oh, sorry.
So it wasn't a multiple selection response. You could only pick the response that resonated most with you, so that could be also why it was a little bit lower. A different response resonated higher with somebody.
Because that would be scary, right? We can all disagree on pragmatic approaches, but if we don't have compassion, we're not getting anywhere. All right, thank you so much. Can we thank all of our presenters? Kathy Foley, Jasmine Bro, and Christina Kind. We really appreciate it, and maybe they'll stick around a little bit if you all have questions and want to ask them individually afterwards. We are going to transition into what is going to be a new 5-minute stump speech period here on Good Morning Truckee for a nonprofit. So every month we'll have one nonprofit give a stump speech, and we are joined this morning by Will Mendoza with the Truckee Community Cares. So Will, you want to come up?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. Wow, that was quite a lot of information to process early in the morning. Thank you. I'm here to talk about Truckee Community Cares. We are a group of Truckee locals that have been doing something for over 25 years that's very unique. Truckee Community Cares originally was called Truckee Community Christmas. Actually, let me back up. I understand, and I have never been able to confirm it, that the original name was Truckee Community Cares of this group that was formed. For many years, it operated as Truckee Community Christmas, and 2 years ago, we changed the name to Truckee Community Cares. We operate only during the holiday season, and our focus is to provide holiday toys for children, food for a holiday meal, and warm coats to those community members that apply through our program. We are 100% volunteers, and we spend over 90% of our funds on direct assistance to the local community. I got involved about 6 years ago, and I keep on getting more and more involved, and I don't seem to be able to leave because I love it. It's really fun. And it fits a very narrow need. Our need, what we do is really to focus on the holiday season. We try and give our local community something to look forward to during the holidays and ease the financial burden of celebrating the holidays. To qualify for our program, you only have to be a Truckee resident. So unlike the complexity of what they just described, we make it super simple. We have an outreach through the local schools, social media, and we get referrals from different community groups. And the only thing we ask people is, are you a Truckee resident? Because that is our mission, to only serve the Truckee community. Beyond that, we don't ask you for any proof of anything. We take your word for it and we assist you. This past year, we had 216 families that applied and were approved for our program. We also helped 75 seniors through the Sierra Senior Services. We also helped the unhoused population through North Tahoe Homeless Services and Kathy, who used to run part of our program, the Coat Drive. And we also work with the Sierra Teen Education Program, STEAM. This past year, we provided each family with grocery gift cards valued at $175 for local grocery stores. We focus on the grocery stores that bring the most value to your dollar, obviously. Working together with Seroptimus International, who have been running the toy drive in conjunction with us for many, many years. I don't even know how many, but I think probably from the beginning. They're amazing, and they work with Toys for Tots. They collect toys, but beyond collecting toys, they take on a task that I think is tremendous. These 216 families give us a name as reference for each of their children, a gender, and an age. The Seroptimus group puts together toys that are toys that are age appropriate and gender appropriate for those children in a bag. These are brand new toys that are unwrapped, and they create these bags that we give out on the day that we do our work. The amount of children that come through the line is really impressive. really impressive, and that's one of the things that I think keeps me coming back. To see these little faces when one of the volunteers comes out and hands a bag of toys, it's incredible. The $175, it doesn't go a long ways. I mean, we all know the cost of living in this town, but the idea is to lessen the burden of being able to get together and celebrate the holiday with everybody just like we all do and not have to worry about it. Another component that is part of our mission is to collect coats. And we collect coats throughout the community. You probably have seen the bins around town because they're usually next to the toy boxes. Those coats are brought in, they're sorted by age and gender. And as people come through our line, it's a drive-through situation where they can come to an area and they can choose a coat for each member of their family. And it's really nice to be able to do this. It's a very small token of appreciation to the people in our community that are struggling financially. One of the things that I've noticed in doing this work is the amount of people in this town that are living just below, I would say, the poverty line. As you earlier said, sir, we have people making $20, maybe even $30 an hour. I quickly did the math on that while you were showing all your slides, and that doesn't even come close to the numbers that were posted on today's presentation. And these are the people that are providing the core services to all of us. They are the backbone of this community. The tourism that comes here expects a certain level of service, and it seems to come in surges. And the only way that this town can sustain that is through that strong labor force. And yet, unfortunately, it's a very expensive town to live in. That's just the reality, right? And a lot of people choose to live here for many different reasons. And those are the people that we have to focus on as much as we can. Some of the people that we serve are probably on the edge of being homeless themselves. And I'm saying that because of the referrals that we get. One of the things that we also do is we offer adoption programs for families, and we try and identify families that are really in dire need. And the stories are heartbroken. They're just incredible. So that is what we do, and thank you for letting me give you this really quick blurb as to who we are. Not really related to what they spoke about, but I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
If you want to get involved with Truckee Community Cares, how do you do that?
TruckeeCommunityCares.com.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we have a little time for any other stump speeches, and then we're going to do the door prizes. Yes.
So data collection is really important to the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. So in addition to the housing data that we've collected, we are currently collecting data around mental health. And so some of you may have seen the press releases and seen the chamber emails. Thank you so much for sending those out. But we have a survey open until February 16th where we need more responses. So I put a flyer on your table. If you could please take this with you, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your colleagues, share it with your customers, and please ask them to take the survey. In addition to the online link, we're contracting with PRC, who's making phone calls. So if any of you get a phone call, please answer it and take the survey. We're hoping to get about 2,000 responses, and we only have about 100 right now. So we need a ton more, so anything you can do to help get the word out. When's the deadline? Deadline's February 16th.
All right, participate, please. Anybody else? Not, we'll move to, yes.
Tahoe Truckee School of Music is hosting a Battle of the Bands on January 20th at the Community Arts Center, and it's a fundraiser, and it should be really fun. It's going to be Steel Sparrows, Down the Rabbit Hole, I wish I had the flyer, and then I'm Mark Paxton. But anyway, go to their website.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a minute to acknowledge for all of those of you who may not know, but we have an individual who passed away on December 27th, George Tickner. And George Tickner made an indelible mark on this community. He was provided the leadership that allows us to manage our own destiny by having a town of Truckee. We would not have been incorporated without the leadership of George Tickner, I think everybody in this community needs to know that. Actually, there are more people here that know him. I'm looking at Ruth too. He's truly an amazing individual. I think there will be an obituary soon in the Sierra Sun. But I just want you all to know, especially folks who are new, that we are a town because of this individual. Truly an extraordinary leader for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got that eye. There were actually two leaders. Two people, the first two people that started the incorporation movement is Kathleen and George.
All right, before we go into the door prizes, we've had some birthdays in the chamber. Melissa and Marissa had their birthdays over the weekend, is that correct? Happy birthday. And as you've already heard, it is Ruth's birthday today. Happy birthday. Okay, without further ado, we are going to a sweatshirt. Town of Truckee sweatshirt will be the first door prize, and that will go to the lucky winner and holder of ticket number 411195. All right, congratulations. Next up, we have a return ticket to Good Morning Truckee and some gloves, which will be nice on this morning. 411254. 411. All right. And next up, we will do the ball cap. The ball cap. Town of Truckee, or no, Truckee Chamber ball cap, big truck. And that will go to 411194. And last but not least, and this one's a little different for us, so whoever donated this, thank you. This is a show in Reno, and it's Kevin and Caruso Magique, I believe. You want to go in? Okay, well, I hope you win. You always win, though. All right, two tickets. General seating, Saturdays, select dates at 8 p.m. The lucky winner and whoever they choose to take, 411203. No. 203. All right, welcome. There you go. Jessica donated. Thank you, Jessica. And that is all we have this morning. Good morning, Truckee. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next month. Everybody have a good, safe day. Take care.